Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. I'm so excited to talk to Keith Bruton today about his debut novel, The Lemon Man. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks very much. I'm delighted to be on your show.
Oh, thank you.
World exclusive. This is the first interview I've done, video interview.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
All the fans have heard my voice, to hear my voice.
I love it. Well, I get to see your face and hear your voice, so that's a great thing. So are you from Ireland originally?
Yeah, born and bred in Dublin, the west side of Dublin.
Oh.
In a place called Clondalkin, which is about 20 minutes outside the city centre. So Dublin's very, very small city. I went to college in the city centre. I worked in the city centre for years. And then in 2016, I moved over to Canada for 4 years with my partner. And we lived in Toronto. And then we got seriously homesick and moved back to Dublin. So I'm back in Dublin, back on home tour.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I feel like Patrick Callan, who is the Lemon Man, I feel like besides his OCD, which I want to come back to, I feel like he's worried about his footprint on the earth. You know, he's a unique hitman in the fact that he's hip as well.
Yeah, it's like I think there's definitely a bit of me in the Hitman. Like when I was writing the book, my hair was growing out, my beard was growing out. I never had a beard this long or my hair this long. I was literally going grey as well. I was going grey writing this novel, and he's very hipster. He's very young. His life is kind of all over the place. He's had like a troubled childhood. His father abandoned him when he was a child, and his mother raised him in like a flat in the city centre with his abusive auntie. And I don't want to say too many spoilers, but he's just had a difficult upbringing, and it's kind of like now he's landed as a hitman in his 40s, which is it's just a wild ride, you know, kind of like.
It's one thing, you know, I think I did a little career changing close to 40, but I did not choose a hitman. But there's some days I wouldn't mind hiring the Lemon Man, to be serious.
I think people like him because it's not like he's killing just random people. He is killing horrible people. I know that's not right in the sense. It's not right to just kill random people, but the people that he is killing kind of deserve it. So you're kind of like, you're on his side throughout the whole thing. And I knew like in the open chapter, like chapter 1, where he discovers the baby, he hears the cries of baby in the bedroom, in the next room. It's like this. I was always contemplating, does he take the baby? Because in the first draft, he doesn't take the baby, and then I rewrote it. Then I rewrote it. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense for him to take this baby, and then this is the obstacle throughout the whole book of him trying to be this father figure, trying to have this little family with Olivia, which is the escort that he sees, and trying to do all these hits on the side, and it's just a mess. It is.
Well, it's funny because in the book the baby's name is Kino, and it's cute because it's like, you know, he's a hitman and he has to think on his feet. So when someone asks what the baby's name is, he comes up with something, and it's, you know, it's right off the cuff. And I think to myself, I would assume you have to be that way as a hitman. If something goes wrong, you've got to be able to fix it.
You have to be a pathological liar, don't you?
Well, that too.
The word Kino, I think he's at like a supermarket. He's at like a market, or like food market, and he sees it on like a packaging on chicken drumsticks. He sees the word Keen, and in Ireland we always have like nicknames. You know, when you're growing up, like I don't know if you have them with like Dan, Danny, or Dano, and I was like, you know, I'm just going to say Kino and call him Kino.
I love it. And of course, you call him, or Patrick calls him, the little fart. And I just, honestly, I laughed out loud the first time that came up. And then the fact that Patrick keeps calling him the little fart is just, I mean, it's so endearing.
Yeah. So it's like a missing piece of his life kind of thing. It's like, he's had this crazy, like 10 years of his life being a hitman. He started off working in like a chipper back in his 20s, working at a fish and chip place as like a cleaner, and then he works himself up to being like a bouncer or like a doorman, and then he just finds himself killing people. So it's a gradual the gradual climb. Crazy.
Well, and I thought, so now to talk about his OCD, it's when I was growing up, I'll bring this back to me. So when I was growing up, if you came to visit us, my mother would make you pull off your shoes at the door. It didn't matter who you were. You could have been the president of the world, and she'd have said, park your shoes at the door. So when Patrick has an issue with Olivia wearing her shoes in the apartment, I had this flashback of growing up, and I thought, oh my goodness, his OCD is just really that deep.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of me as well, because anytime I leave the house, I always check. I check if the like cooker's off, even though I haven't even cooked all day. I will check the plug sockets, and make sure like chargers are not on. I make sure the door's like locked 10 times. Like, and my partner goes crazy. She hates it. She absolutely hates it. It's like, you haven't even cooked, and then you're there checking the cooker. It's like, so there's definitely me in Patrick on, yeah.
Well, you won't go off and find out when you come back that your place is burned down because you left the cooker on.
Exactly. So it goes off automatically as well. It's one of those cookers that goes off itself.
Okay, maybe that is a little deep. So I think that was yet another thing, though. The OCD figures in so wonderfully into what you've written, because Patrick makes lists of things he has to do, and he crosses those off the list. And it's very similar to when he crosses someone off the real list in life. So, I mean, he's so organized in that. And so when he does pick up the little fart Keno, I'm like, well, of course he would, because he can't leave something undone. Mm-hmm. And of course, honestly, I told you before we recorded, I'm such a fanboy of this book because you hit all the points of your character. Patrick is so well-rounded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. Like, it would make sense to make a to-do list as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, well, of course.
You do need to be organized.
Right.
And I think when the baby gets thrown to him, it just kind of throws everything out the basket kind of thing, doesn't it? It's just like, and it's like, now he's all sympathetic now. He's after killing him for 10 years. Now it's like he wants to settle down now.
Right. Right.
And you can't have your cake and eat it.
It's as if his biological clock is ticking rather than Olivia's. And that too, I think, is a good thing, because as we age and change and go through life, we make changes, we make adjustments, or else you're stagnant the rest of your life.
Exactly. And she's a bit younger as well. I make her, I think, in her like early 30s, and he's like 40. So like, you could tell like they're both kind of similar. They're come from similar backgrounds. Like, they're both troubled. They both probably they have one foot out the door kind of thing, you know. It's hard to get out of that world when you've been doing it for so long, you know, kind of like. So yeah.
It is true. And you see also with Patrick, you see his emotions change, not just with the baby, but also with Olivia, how he interacts with her and some of the things that he asks her, which I don't want to mention, but he asks her certain things throughout the book. And you see a maturity in both of them, because, as you say, they are looking to change their direction or get out of the game, because they're both in a game for sure.
Oh, yeah. And it'll have to come to an end. It does.
I found that Dublin is certainly another character in this book. Mm-hmm. I feel as if I've not been to Dublin, but I feel as if I have now, because you tell us which streets Patrick is riding his bike down. And do you bicycle? Do you ride a bike?
I ride my bike around the city as well. I'm morphing into him.
Well, I love it because, you know, at one point Patrick explains, just so off the cuff, that, you know, he can get from point A to point B much quicker on a bicycle than he can if he drives.
Yeah, the streets are so narrow here, like, and one-way system. It's just a nightmare. It is, you know. It's kind of like Amsterdam. You know, these small European cities are just like that. It's not like London or New York. It's not built for cars. These cities, you know, kind of like. Yeah, and I mentioned all the locations. Like, I don't just go on Google Maps. I do walk the streets. You know, like all the locations are real. Like there's a character in the book that I love is Jack McGee, the gun seller, which is kind of loosely based his features on like there's a famous Northern Ireland poet called Michael Longley.
Okay.
This big barrel of a man, and he's in his like 70s, still alive today, he's writing, and he's this big barrel of a man, like a rugby player, bushy white beard, and the glasses, and I was like, this is Jack McGee, you know, kind of, and I love his character, and it's he's a very intriguing character in the book as well that I love. Yeah, but I put all the historical sites, the GPO, the General Post Office, and the Trinity College, all those places are all mentioned in the book. And I have two friends from Canada, or they're here this week, and we're just walking around the city, jumping to the pubs. The pub scene is huge here. There's like over 750 pubs in Dublin. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, so big drinking culture and a lot of historical.
Well, you won't have a day that you can't find a pub. That's for sure.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I loved the Bronze Man, and I loved the interaction between the Bronze Man and Patrick. That was such a fun thing. The ancillary characters in your book are just as important as the main characters. They each you've done well in giving them each a role to play, and they're not just sort of throwaway characters. Each of these people play a part in his life, and that's a fun thing.
Yeah, even like in the open scene where it says 10 years ago, in the open scene, you got Eagle Eye, and that's this like kind of mentor. He's like he's a good few years older, and he kind of like takes him under his wing. Like they're all important characters. Jack McGee is kind of like a father figure to him. Eli is kind of like a mentor to him, and then the Bronze Man is just kind of like they feed off each other. They're always like sarcastic to each other. They're always like picking each other off because they both need each other, you know. They need each other. He needs to do the hits, and she needs to pay him, and she needs to get paid as well, you know, kind of thing. Yeah.
It is, and it's a pecking order, you know. It's really like office politics. It just he sort of has a different kind of office.
Yeah, exactly. And even like the Crazy L, the actual pub location and everything, that's a real location in Dublin as well. Yeah,
cool.
I just renamed the pub to the Crazy L, so that's my own little twist to it. But it is a real pub in Dublin, so yeah.
I like that. It's it flows so really well. It just goes, and it's a fun read. It's something that I totally recommend it. I've already been recommending it to friends because I'm like, it's fun, and it's
a quick read as well. It's like it 270 pages. It's a very quick read. Chapters are short and all. Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Well, my attention span's not always that long, so it helps as well.
I'm a slow reader as well. It takes me forever to read.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that I have a podcast and I read as slowly as I do, but there you have it. So have you toured with the book?
No, I haven't done any tours. No.
All right.
No.
Well,
I should actually do them, shouldn't I?
Yes. Well, I mean, so that's a big thing too, because, you know, with different publishing houses, whether you're self-published or published by a big publisher, it does make such a big difference on who tours and all. So yeah. I sort of looked, because I'm always curious, what is the bookstore scene like in Dublin? Do you have
in Dublin? We have Eason's is the big one, Eason's and Sons. I don't know if you've seen. Did you see that one?
Online? I did, yes.
So that's the big one. That'd be the equivalent of like an Indigo in Canada, or what's the big one in America?
Barnes and Noble.
That'd be the equivalent of that one. Yeah. So Ireland's very small. It's a small market, you know. There's only 5 million people here, and my publisher is in California.
Oh.
So they're in California, so it's a huge market. The US market and the UK market they're just big, you know. It just makes sense to sell the books there, you know.
I love it. It came very quickly, and it's a wonderful read. Do you have any social media or a website that you'd like to share?
I'm on Instagram, so I keep Bruton books. I'm on Twitter as well, just keep Bruton, and Facebook as well. I'm on Facebook as well. I don't use Facebook as much. I'm more on the Instagram because there's a lot of accounts on Instagram. There's a big book community there. So
yes.
Yeah.
That and Twitter, and do you have a website?
I do have a website, keepbruton.com.
But how hard is that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Once again, the book is The Lemon Man, and it's by Keith Bruton. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on. I definitely want to be on this again. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Hang on for me just a minute. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.